Good morning. Please be advised the Board of Trustees is participating in this special board meeting August 20th, 2021, in person and teleconferencing. The meeting is being recorded and all actions will be taken by a roll call vote. As noted on the agenda, anyone wishing to observe the meeting may do so via AEUHSD YouTube channel. As a reminder, during special board meetings, the public may submit comments only for items listed on the agenda. If you are participating remotely, you will be permitted to share your comment by phone. Speakers will be placed on hold until it is their time to provide their comment to the board. Once the speaker is done, or the 3-minute speaker and or 20-minute agenda time item allotment is met, they will be disconnected from the call. Speakers may continue to observe the meeting on the YouTube channel. If you wish to make a comment in person, you will need to wear a face covering, complete a speaker card, and give it to staff or to the board secretary. In-person comments will go first. Submissions must comply with the 3-minute time limit. A total time for public input on each agenda item shall be limited to 20 minutes. Speakers are cautioned that under the California law, no person is immune from liability for making intentionally false or defamatory comments regarding any person, simply because those comments are made at a public meeting. Comments received shall become part of the official record. I would like to ask board members to respond to the following question as I call your name. Are you able to hear our proceedings on your end? Ms. Martinez. Is Ms. Martinez with us? Yes. Is not. Okay, thank you. Ms. Perrell?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Wynn?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady? Yes. Please stand and place your right hand over your heart for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are on D, public comments from the floor for agendized items. Do we have any comments?
We do. We have 2 speakers this morning.
Okay, thank you. So each comment is limited to 3 minutes each. The total time for public input on each item shall be limited to 20 minutes. During public comments, the board listens to concerns or issues. The board may ask questions for purposes of clarification. The law prohibits the board from entering into a dialogue with the public or taking action on items not on the agenda. In-person comments will go first. First person.
Good morning, Madam President, Mr. Vice President, Madam Clerk, and Board. My name is Michael Reeves. Currently, I'm served on 2 boards in the Antelope Valley. I represent all of you on those boards. But today I come before you as a private citizen because we are involved in a search for a new superintendent. Coincidentally, at the college, we're involved in a search for the superintendent president. And at my church, we're looking for a new pastor. So I'm kind of involved in this search process right now. I know you've heard a lot about DEI lately. I have at the college. And I want to suggest that as I have at the college as a private citizen, that we alter our process a little bit on how we search for a new superintendent, whether at the college or at the high school district. As you know, in the past, we've accepted resumes and applications from anybody that wanted to apply. And then we would narrow it down with a search committee or a search firm, and then keep narrowing it down. Finally, we got 3 candidates. Well, I want to do things differently this time. I would like to boards to come up with some items that they feel the new superintendents or presidents should address and what's their feelings on it. And have these candidates take a written test and see how they hit the points that you're looking for. Is this the person that you want, that meets the qualifications that you want? the essay would not have the candidate's name on it, it would be a number. So we would not know who the person was, but we'd have a number. Search committee would review the questions, submit the responses to the board after they narrowed it down to 3 people. And the board makes the final decision, of course, like they will. I think this is sort of like a civil service type thing. I think that we can't do it the old way. We can't do it where we're going to look at applications and subjectively judge somebody. I want more of an objective process here and at other places that I'm on, so that someone can apply for it, and anybody can apply for it, and the public can say, yes, we met these criteria for DEI, because this was a completely unbiased search process. We let people take a test, anybody. We put a number on the paper. You don't know who it is.
Your time is up. Sorry, time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our next speaker.
The next speaker is Vivian.
Good morning. I'm going to go ahead and try to rush real quick and want to real scope. And young man, thank you always for being professional. And Ms. Christina Ramos. Good morning, Dr. Ruffin, and good morning, everybody. I'm going to start by saying I wish I could let this gentleman finish whatever he was saying, because it sounded really good. Because you know what? Respectful and honesty stands for a lot in what I hope that a superintendent have. I wrote down this morning, last night, something just top of my head. I start to say, honesty, integrity, non-biased, non-racist, no color lines, be cognizant of the struggles and socioeconomics for all backgrounds, especially Black and brown and poor students, to make students priority over politics. Make sure I'm where I'm at. Okay. Be a leader. Be a leader, unafraid to stand for truth. Keep all individuals accountable, even if you must fire and suspend with great causes. But knowing students do make mistakes, adults must be better. Be a bridge builder, a motivator, a mentor to build staff and kids' self-esteem. Like I heard at the last meeting from Dr. Ruffin, something as she was saying something about students should be afforded free or services for AV colleges as students from SOAR. So be one that includes all races. She always promotes transparency and inclusion and fairness, willing to stand alone and be ostracized for helping our students. You all are supposed to be doing, especially because they pay your salaries. So take a look at her, Dr. Ruffin, as a positive role model for a superintendent character. And let's not promote past regimes that promote divisions with most of our board members against one person or 2 people. Let's not promote division of hatreds among the board. Let's not promote hatred amongst the board. Workforce of this district, be a good, intelligent, God-fearing. We need fresh, intelligent superintendent, not afraid of truth, standing for what is right. Help our students and the teachers that are supposed to care and teach them, and especially help the parents that send their loved ones to individuals we're supposed to trust. Let's make sure that everybody is treated fairly and not racist. Let's have a superintendent that promotes staying in good trouble to help all races. If I have any minute left, I'm just going to say we need to make sure that one thing that I've always promoted is this. I don't care if you're president of the United States. You should be able to treat that same individual that's a custodian the same way. Because what runs through their veins is the same thing that runs through my vein, and so does that custodian. I don't care what race you are, whatever. I don't care what race you are, whatever. One thing I'm going to say about me and what I think that if we can get a superintendent that looks at everybody as an individual, as they bring unique qualities, just the way you would want your children to go to school and to have people to treat your kids the same way as us parents would. Make sure that they treat your children fairly, not knowing better and not knowing lower. Try to teach everybody so that we can all have the same outcome. which is promoting good characters for us to have students that go to college and come back and say, hey, they seen something wrong, they want to correct it. So I wish that somebody would take heed to what this young man said. There should be some type of different type of way of hiring a superintendent, and hopefully we'll have one that has good respect for each and everybody in this community, and not just those that maybe the politics allow to happen. So thank you, Mr. Russell. Thank you all.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you both for coming forward this morning. We appreciate hearing from you. We're hearing from the board this morning. Ms. Burrell, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
What was that? What did you say, Ms. McGrady?
Ms. Perrell, did you have any comments from the board that you would like to make this morning?
Oh, no, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes. Good morning. I'm wishing our students, staff, and families the best of health as our country battles the Delta and the Lambda variants. Now more than ever, should we be aware and exercise safety precautions with making sure we continue to mask up, wash our hands, and monitor our distances as we continue to strive to extend our students an academic promise to improve their life trajectories. Next, I want to implore our collective Antelope Valley Union High School District community to get involved and demand to be involved in this process of selecting an equity warrior as our next superintendent. Had I had the opportunity with enough awareness for the July 7th board meeting, I would have suggested onboarding firms like Alma Advisory Group or Koya Partners, a diversified search group. The hiring of a superintendent is the school board's main priority. That is our one employee. Being able to find an exceptionally talented individual that will lead our students with an equity warrior mindset, and one who's innovative with vision to move our students' academic performance as it has not been the past 24 years. To me, this means first and foremost, not selecting a search firm that supports a cookie cutter search connected to who plays golf with whom, or choosing a systems person promoting a continued status quo. A few of my CSBA connections that I reached out to suggested that the firm that we have supported, you can apply, but don't count on getting interviewed. I am hopeful that this is not the case for what we will experience with this firm in this process. I wish I would say that I'm surprised, and I am hopeful that the board will consider the needs of the 80% minoritized youth attending our district and take strong consideration of all candidates applying. This means sharing with the board everyone who applies, not just who are the selected people deemed are qualified. Even if this means that it's someone like Austin Butner, who led LAUSD and did not go through the traditional ranks, yet understood what it took to move the needle of educational justice for underserved students like the youth in the Antelope Valley Union High School District. We need someone with a deep commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity, and a relentless conviction to network across the aisle with all stakeholders, students, and parents. This is the charge of this board, as our students and families are deserving of a superintendent that will not reflect the status quo, yet be innovative and able to lead our students in their academic endeavors. And I stand with the persons that spoke, Mr. Reeves and Ms. Vivian. Instead of going with what was traditional, I'm hoping that we can step out of that frame and really look at the needs of the students in this community, meeting the needs of the students in this community. Instead of treating them like problems that need to be managed, we need a leader who at her or his core is a trauma-informed leader that values all and will make decisions that prioritizes compassion, respect, and dignity.
Ms. Wynn?
I just have a couple of comments and mostly to say that the shoes that we have to fill are going to be hard to fill because I feel that Dr. Vieira has addressed issues in this district that a lot of sometimes people don't want to address, and he's addressed them with dignity and professionalism and respect. And that's going to be something that I'm looking for particularly. I feel like the process that we're just about embarking on is an open process, and that it's going to be something that will involve our community as well. And I thank Mr. Reeves for his comments, and appreciate them as well as Ms. Vivian's comments this morning. We're going to try and make this as open as possible. I'm excited to see the applicants and excited to see what our future holds for us. Thank you.
Mr. Rush.
Right.
I have no comments this morning. Excuse me. So we are at F. Representatives from Leadership Associates will discuss the superintendent search process. Mr. Van Linden, the floor is yours.
And David Verdugo is with me as well. Good morning to all of you. It's always good to listen to comments, and so we of course realize in this conversation that the board is going to see all of the applications. We're starting the process of finding out what the district and the community wants to see in their next superintendent, and so we start off today. I was blessed to be able to meet with you in July, but David wasn't. So I thought maybe give David a few seconds to say hi, and he's on. So David, what would you like to say?
Well, I'd like to begin by saying thank you to the board, the trustees, for the opportunity to be a part of this search. I am a retired superintendent, obviously, Paramount Unified School District, a school district of 17,000 students previously. I spent 9 years as the superintendent there, have experience as a deputy superintendent, elementary principal, high school principal for many years as well. But I would add that I was also, following my retirement, the executive director of CALSA, California Association of Latino Superintendents. But again, just a real pleasure to work with you and Dr. Van Leuven on this search. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, David. So our purpose today is to hammer down the logistics of the search. You have a bunch of talking points, some of the things we're going to go through today, and just to finalize it. And with that, we're going to figure out the groups of people that you want to talk to, so we don't leave anybody out, because this is your community, and we have just some general things that other districts have had, but you have very specific groups that you'll want to get engaged and have them involved, as was discussed. We have a timeline that we want to get squared away, and then we're going to be looking specifically toward the input from the board in terms of the characteristics and what the challenges and what the strengths of the district are. So and that's what we're going to follow up on. So looking at the beginning part, and we're going to we have discussion and action review of the search process. The second item that we want to talk about is designating a board liaison and spokesperson. Usually we take two, and it's usually the president or the vice president or clerk. So I'll let you guys, maybe you can tell me who that might be if you'd like. If we had some issues that we wanted to communicate, so that we don't, it'll just give us a liaisons for us.
Are you asking that question right now, Mr.?
I am. Yes.
This is Dr. Ruffin. Thank you so much for being here and sharing that information. I wrote some notes in regards to this part. This is obviously not a diverse board, as you can see, and I feel like it should be the responsibility of the entire board to have input from everyone. I like that you said we should have 2 people chosen at the minimum, and I would like to be one of those, as that would include a sense of diversity in this process. With the way decisions have been made by the board on how we are going to, I'm more concerned on how are we going to make sure that the whole board is included in opportunities in this process, and not it just be a select two.
Okay, well, let me just help you. The whole board will be responsible. If we had a question about something, it would be going to the representatives of the board. So this would be the point where the board would tell us either one or two people that this could be the point person that we could just go to if we had an initial question or something that we need clarification on.
I would
Okay,
say
when I was mentioning the whole board, I'm not sure if you're aware that our community is broken up into 5 mini districts. And I represent the east side of a portion of Lancaster and a portion of Palmdale, Little Rock. And I'm interested, I see here that there is a place under 5, this is the majority of the board members to review. And
Yes.
instead of it saying the majority of the board members, again, I would like that all board members will have an opportunity to review. And that's critical in making sure that there's representation from all sides of this community and not just 1 or 2 areas.
Okay, let's see if I can just get somebody, we'll get down to that one. Is there somebody, can the board give me a point person to deal with, or David
Yes.
need to deal with?
I would be happy to do that as president. I would be happy to be the point person. Thank you.
Okay.
That's Gina Brady. Thank you.
And I'm putting my name in the hat to be a point person as well, Dr. Ruthin.
I would think that we would need to vote on that, and I would actually go with our clerk, Denny Wynn. I think probably partly because it's very difficult for us to get a hold of you, and you don't come.
It is not difficult. It is not difficult, Ms. McGrady. That's your opinion. It is not difficult to get a hold of me.
We have had many problems.
And I would appreciate if you do not defame me at this time.
So I would ask that we call for consensus of the board.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have my mic on. There we go. Just for reference, I have gone through the process before with the Lancaster School District. So I am familiar in choosing a new superintendent and have been involved in that process.
And likewise, I have extensive experience being on teams that have selected school board members as well and gone through a transition period of having a superintendent who's been there for a substantial amount of time and had to shift out.
I would suggest that we take a consensus of the board for the liaison and spokesperson. I know, Mr. Van Leeuwen, do you want 2 or 1?
I'll take whatever you give me.
Okay.
I'm happy.
I believe that you suggested 2, right?
I did suggest, but I also would like to be able to move on, and we'll deal with it however you guys would like to deal with it.
Ms. Burrell, who would you like for your 2 suggestions?
You, Mrs. McGrady, and Dr. Ruffin.
Dr. Ruffin, who would you like?
Myself and Ms. Nguyen.
Okay, hang on. Let me write these down. Ms. Nguyen, who would you like?
Well, I do feel that the board president should be the point person involved in something like this. We do need to have clear communication, and I'm confident that at some point, all of our opinions will be able to be heard. And I don't mind doing this part of this process.
Mr. Rush, your 2?
Ms. McGrady, this one.
Okay, and I'm with Ms. McGrady in this one. So your 2 contacts will be McGrady and Wynn. So we can move on, please.
Okay. This is just confirmation, and I know that Rachel has been in contact with Becky Banning, our person, because we've had conversations, but we've had templates and starting at least getting the groundwork squared away. If we don't, I'm assuming what's posted on the website is correct, but Rachel can give us the email addresses for all of you, so we have that part of it. So number 5 on this is discuss the input from board, stakeholder groups, and online surveys in the development of a position profile. So this is where, just like people were discussing, we want to make sure we include the different kinds of groups. So let's just back up, because not all of us were with us in the July meeting. So we have different ways where we're getting input. We're going to have a survey that's going to go out to the world, a digital one. We have meetings that we're advocating that if we approve the timeline, that's the draft, that we'd be meeting September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd with different groups of community members, small groups that will be Zoomed. We also have it's a community group, and we have and then we have this meeting that we're having right now. That's actually, people have already started giving us input with the community or the open comments. So what we're going to be looking for is making sure that we've included any groups that aren't on that list. And that, again, that's just a generic list that we gave for a place to start. You have some very specific groups of people that you're interacting with. Sometimes it could be Rotary, sometimes it could be business partners, it could be different groups that need to have a voice. You want to make sure that are included. So this would be the part where you might think about who we need to include, and we can do that. And then we'll set up a schedule that will include those folks.
Okay, I know that we're moving forward, but I'm not sure if this was supposed to go under, you were on number 3, discussion of the survey. Let me see if I got the wrong number. You moved to number 5, right? Board affirms stakeholder groups and input.
Yes.
So my notes for this area is twofold. I see the dates that suggested is August 23rd to September the 8th. I think that there's a problem with the September date because that's Labor Day.
Well, August the 23rd through September 8th is when we would open a survey that would be open to the community. So they could give it any time. What we're talking about, if we're going to get into the schedule, which that's not what we're talking about right now, would be September 1 through 3 is what we have put on our draft. Right now,
what I'm saying is September Labor Day is that the 6th, correct?
Okay.
And so I'm just wondering if that is a good enough window to have input. If traditionally, sometimes parents take off, sometimes community members take off a little bit early. So I just wanted to be able to cast that net a little wider.
Okay.
And
Well,
while we're talking about the stakeholder groups for input sessions,
yeah.
I definitely think we should consider religious institutions that was not on the list, businesses not benefiting from vendor contracts that are already with the district, community-based organizations that I did not see on there, people from several elementary schools. I didn't see any elementary schools. We're a high school district, so we don't have any representation from elementary schools, which most parents would be concerned because the majority of their students would feed into our district. We don't have anybody from the Antelope Valley Community College. Maybe one of their board trustees could engage in this process as well, because a large percent of our students end up there. And it's my understanding that they need a lot of support when they get there. So they would have a stake in this. And then have the board to select 2 individuals from their respective areas be involved in this process. Since there's 5 different mini district, to have us have at least 2 people from our respective areas that we refer to be a part of this process.
One way we could possibly handle that would be include the Antelope Valley School Board Association, because we would have school board members included from every district, including the college district. So that might be an easy way to reach out to people who are absolutely involved with our district, with us, and with our superintendent.
Actually, that's something that I have in my notes as well. Antelope Valley School Board Association. I don't think that that's traditionally done, reached out to them. And I think that that's a good idea to get their input as well. I also, under Chamber of Commerce, there's several chambers in the Antelope Valley, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to reach out to all of them.
Yeah, we'll whoever you say that you would like for us to talk to, we'll set up, and we'll give them an in-person experience if they desire that. They also have access to the survey as well.
At least the survey. So survey is probably what the basic, and then personal interaction would probably be the second approach.
David and I have done searches together where we've actually met with the college presidents, the community college presidents. we've been in, I've done something in Merced. We're the Merced president and representative. So there's a variety of places where we can go. It's just a matter of you telling us. And again, that list was just a generic list that we don't know who the specifics are. But we want to talk to the people, and get as much input as we can. The part that's interesting is, we will do this, but we find that more people choose to, especially probably with COVID right now and times, tend to want to just deal with a survey, which is fine. It all goes to the same place when we're all said and done, but it's a chance for us to reach out, and it helps both David and myself learn more about the district when we talk to people this way. And so it's very helpful for us to learn, and then we will share all this information back to you. Everything that we hear and everything that we say, or when we talk to people, will be coming back to you in an executive summary. And you'll see all of the survey comments as well.
Thank you for that input. I did read that the survey would be available online.
Yes.
As I stated before, this is an 80% minoritized community. We also did not include foster youth, which is a huge population of this community. We did not include the needs from Department of Children and Family Services, social workers, or key community members from that space that would give light to the needs of our students. And considering that it is an 80% minoritized community, and we have extended to the best, or to a large extent, access to internet, a lot of our families still struggle with that. How are parents who are community members who don't have access, what are other options for them to engage other than doing this survey, tapping in online? Are there any other options to make sure that we're maximizing input from the community who most needs to be heard?
Well, back in the old school days, we would actually go and sit in a room and people would have to come find us. With COVID, that sort of is done. So we've become a Zoom opportunity. We've become a survey opportunity. There's some districts who have made the places available in the district for people to come who have access. Although I imagine with Zoom and everything that's happened, hotspots were delivered out last year, and probably you're getting ready to perhaps get ready for that again. But that's, given what's happening in our world today, we're really probably electronically based.
This is Dr. Verdugo speaking just for a moment. What I would add is that the principals play a role in maximizing, as you mentioned, the opportunity that's available for our parents and stakeholders to take the survey. So that is a target, if you will, where we would monitor that survey as well. So if the survey numbers are not being, as you mentioned, maximized, or good high numbers, then we would probably suggest some strategies directly to your site principals in order to get better, stronger numbers and representation accordingly. But we've suggested that local libraries be alerted to the fact that the survey is available online, that your school libraries are available as well. And so site principals, again, have been really instrumental in helping us with respect to increasing the number of stakeholders via the survey.
Thank you, Dr. Verdugo. I really appreciate your input. And on that note, I would ask that the board consider setting up opportunities. I know we had a few years ago where parents would go in and use computers on campus where they could fill out the surveys for student enrollment. So I'm just trying to, I love your idea of having the principal be responsible, but really giving access points and giving parents enough time to get there. Traditionally, we close shop about 4 o'clock or 3:30. This is a bedroom community. Most of our parents travel down what they consider down below for work. And, you know, we're having this meeting at 10 o'clock, but we would have had more presentation if parents were present and could be here, but they work. So what I'm asking is just to give them ample opportunity to be engaged in the process. And I would like for that to be extended to them. And I do agree with Dr. Van Leuven that the time that we're in right now doesn't afford us to be face-to-face, but I would like for them to have every opportunity to voice their opinion in this process.
We agree 100%. You know, we in the old, again, in the old days, we would probably have the survey open for a week, but we've obviously extended it because of the district and times and all the other stuff that's going on. And if we're, you know, as David said, if we're concerned about the numbers, we have extended surveys before and really pushed to make sure that the word is out. You guys get such great press that your local newspaper, I'm sure, will put that in there and encourage, you know, again, we just want participation. And the reality of it is most of the people are going to respond through the survey. So it's really access to them to do that. I think the ideas that David just talked about are ones that we've been successfully used in other places. So anyway, I think those are all good.
Can we also dish the survey out to community-based pastors?
Oh, it's open to the world. I mean, this is a whole community. This isn't just schools. This is it's going to be on your website, and we're going to, you know, it's going to be advertised that way. We did David and I did Santa Maria High School District in Santa Barbara County, where the local TV put it even on there, you know, to let people know that it was available and where it was. And we had a tremendous turnout in a primarily Hispanic community. It was great.
It's almost, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's almost analogous to a community forum opportunity, if you will. And so that, I think, is important. We work diligently with your tech department. We do request that the district office have this available on the website. And we have found that, well, we know that this survey, of course, can be taken on a variety of devices, whether it's iPad, laptops, phones. So that accessibility, I think, makes it a little bit easier to be able to do that. And we've been able to garner high numbers via the Zoom survey. I'm sorry, via the survey opportunity as well. So we feel confident that we'll have some high numbers with respect to this. But the website is an important announcement, if you will, of the fact that the survey is available.
Okay. Do we have an awareness of the budget? I don't know if this budget comes from your firm for advertising. Dr. Van Leuven mentioned advertising on radio stations, and I know I've seen billboards up within the community. Is there a budget for advertising in this process?
No, usually what the local newspaper and, well, I mean, you've already had an article that was talking about this board meeting, what was going on. I mean, usually the newspapers and local radio cover it as part of their news. It's not like it's an advertisement.
Right. And that's my concern. You see that it's only 2 parents that came. So, I mean, it's not like it's a whole bunch of people here at this 10 o'clock time.
I agree with you. And that's the nature of what happens when we would come and we'd sit in a day, you know, waiting for people to come in, and we'd see maybe 10 people for a district. But it's the availability is there. Where the difference is, I think Zoom has made people a lot more, because we have hours all day, and so people can come in and they don't have to drive there and all that stuff. The survey is available, and it's really just a matter of people knowing about it. And so, as Dr. Verdugo said, you have principals that will be putting stuff out in their newsletters. The district puts stuff out. Local newspaper could be covering this. It's a big, you guys are big news, you know, and so you're the center of the world there. And the fact that we're actually opening this up earlier than we're even landing, the concept was so that people would be able to see that and be able to participate in that. But again, we're still at a point where, you know, if people don't put in for a survey, they don't put in for a survey. I don't know how else to deal with that part of it. I would expect with the size of your district and just all the things that are going on, that you'll have a high participation rate.
I'm very hopeful, but I also know that we just did a survey for our policing in the district, and the data that came back, it was not a reflection of the voices from the community. And we hired a professional research team to engage in that process. So I would like to have as much transparency and, again, opportunities for the 80% minoritized, 63% Latinos, Hispanics in our district, and 14 to percent African American. It's really important that we get their opinion about who represents our district as we move forward. And I'll rest.
Very good point. And if I may add that, of course, the survey is in multiple languages, dependent upon what's required. Spanish, obviously, is something that is coming forward from the conversation. But if I may for a moment, and I apologize, I just wanted to make sure that we had captured some of the items that the entire board had mentioned. So adding to the generic list that we had are business partners, religious institutions, community-based organizations, feeder districts, Antelope Valley Community College, Antelope Valley School Board Association. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned that you expect a high participation rate. Can you tell me what you would expect as a high participation rate?
Well, I'm not sure what our world's, David, what was our world's record that we had for amount of people that responded? Do you remember? It was Monrovia, I think.
Gosh, I can't recall, to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
So,
it's probably at least 3,000 people is what I would think.
yeah, I was actually going to say about 3,500 is the number that was the highest that we obtained via surveys. And that's a very good percentage.
Yeah.
And if I may, I'm sorry, I'm going to add to that list because I can just recall it. And that is that the foster youth and community social workers be, and or their organizations be involved in that list as well.
Yes, Dr. Verdugo, yes.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing that happens next week is that, I'm involved with the superintendent leadership series that we put on with all of the superintendents from both Antelope Valley and Santa Clarita Valley. I'm meeting with them on Wednesday, but I can obviously talk if we want to include them in this conversation. We can set up a time where that would be a group that we would meet on one of these 3 days as well. So again, it stands out pretty far. And it's the important part, at least on this item, is just the conversation we just had, because it wasn't specific enough. They were generic things, and they're things that are really important in your community that people be engaged with. And we don't know who those are. You guys are the experts in that. So that was helpful for us.
Excuse me, just real quick, can I insert just on your list, Dr. Verdugo, if you could include the University of the Antelope Valley. It's also an educational institution in our valley. It's really rather new compared to the other districts in the valley, but still I'd like to get their input as well. And
sure.
Then just an FYI, we don't have as many PTAs and as maybe the elementaries do. I don't think we actually have any that I can think of, but we do have a lot of booster clubs.
Yeah.
We actually have a lot of PTAs in elementary schools, and the elementary schools throughout and on the east side of Palmdale have PTAs.
Yeah, the elementaries do. Yes, they do. But I was speaking specifically about the high school district.
Oh, no, yeah, they don't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually booster clubs at the high school level.
I
So
just want to make sure that you understand that.
yeah.
Maybe the difference. Thank you.
Okay. So that'll capture it, and we'll start building a schedule. If we can figure out what the right schedule is, we'll get you to approve that part of it. And again, we take all of this information from the survey, what you're going to tell us today from the community, and we create a profile that you guys will approve and look at and say it's good. And that's what we will use to advertise to what the qualifications are that the Antelope Valley community is looking for, what you guys are looking for. We will remind you when you're doing the selection, because you will check, you were going to tell us who you're going to interview out of all the applications you get. And you'll also, we'll remind you that this is what you said, what you were trying to match. And when we're doing the interviews, we'll remind you that this is what you were looking for as well. So when we go through that process, that'll be the sort of the guiding boundary for you to figure out what you're looking for. Okay, and then let us at this time, if we can, we're maybe go into the timeline. Ready to do that?
Did we already discuss the survey?
No, but we
Okay.
can.
Just making,
I'm kind of going off the notes that we had.
so if we're discussing the survey,
Okay.
I know there's an area under number 6 where I would like to add possible information in regards to selecting a person. There's no mention of DEI. There's no mention of a person having a sense of innovation, no sense of a person having community engagement, mental health, or adding an educational tech perspective. I think that those are all important for someone who would be coming to our district. Again, like I said, equity warrior. We also charter local charter schools. I think it's important that they, an individual could have a perspective about the charter school leadership. And that's all under 6. Under number 8, I looked at mentioning a person who has some experience with turnabout situations, expertise with working with boards, and expertise in the area of inclusion. Those are not things that are mentioned on there.
Well, we intend to capture those characteristics that you're looking for as we advance on this agenda that we are talking about. And it'll be very open-ended when it comes to us capturing the desired characteristics and traits that you folks desire in your next superintendent. So if I may, I think, Doctor, what you're referring to, if I may for a moment, I'm assuming here a little bit, but those are the types of desired items and experiential backgrounds that we will capture and place according to the majority of the board and their desires, of course, everyone's desires, the experiential and experience background. So you talked about a non-traditional superintendent, for example. You talked about a variety of other things, the equity warrior and so on. We would literally begin to ask, we desire a superintendent who, and then following that, and I know I'm jumping a little bit, who is an equity leader, or who has experience in high school settings, or who might be a visible leader accordingly, or has a strong track record of increasing student achievement for all students. So when we get to that point, which is really number 11, if I may, just respectfully, that's where we want to capture those characteristics that are so important to the entire board. Once we do that, along with the stakeholder input that we were talking about earlier, we create that position description that the board must approve before it goes out throughout the entire state to advertise accordingly in terms of what Antelope Valley is desiring and preferring.
Thank you, Dr. Verdugo.
And also the other part of this thing is that there are open, what you're going to get are people are going to bubble some things and then they're going to write comments. You're going to see all the comments that people write, and we will be looking at the themes that are coming into that part of it as well. So a lot of the things that you're talking about today, and we just heard with one of the opening community input people, we're talking about very specific things that they were looking for. That's the kind of input that we're going to be getting from the community when we talk with them, as well as the survey. And you're going to see everything. Everything that anybody writes, we'll redact it if somebody says something that's not nice about somebody, but we will, the board's going to see everything that comes into us. So, okay. So there's a survey that we're talking about. We also need to talk about the languages. So we have a few languages. I'm assuming, but I shouldn't, that Spanish might be one that you might be interested in.
Yes.
I think all languages that any of our students speak and their parents speak should be included.
Okay, well, we don't have all languages. We have.
No, I'm not saying all languages. I'm saying any language that's specific to families and students within our district. So even if we have, let's just say 25 students within our district that may speak Chinese, we should have that available for even that small population. I don't think that it should be contingent on a number, but any representation. If we have someone here, that speaks Mandarin, we should not exclude. That's what I'm saying. Not
Okay.
that we put it out in all languages, that we put it out in all languages that it needs to be transcribed in order to not exclude anyone from this process.
Okay, I think I know we have Spanish, we have Mandarin.
It might be a daunting task, but I'm sure that we have a department in this district that can help you. At one point, we had 24 different countries represented by students in our district. So I know that it might seem quite, like I said, daunting, but I know that we'd be able to help, the district would be able to help with that.
Well, possibly we might look at, instead of translating into 24 different languages, we might try to come up with translators to help folks take the survey. We might be able to set a time at the library or whatever that anyone who is speaking Mandarin could come in and take it, or whatever language it happens to be. That might be an easier way than trying to translate it into 24 languages.
Well, we don't have the ability to translate it. We don't, the 24, but we have Mandarin, we have Spanish, we have English. And we might have one more, but I can't think of what it is.
Well, we might want to ask the question, what do you currently translate for which languages? That gives us a sense of a certain percentage. I mean, we can blanket cover certainly and place Korean in there, and Mandarin, Spanish, English, of course. But typically, as Trustee Wynn mentioned, and Madam President mentioned, obtaining from you, or it's incumbent upon you to let us know what those higher percentages are that you might currently translate with and for.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I was just told we only translate into Spanish.
And that's primarily, President McGrady, most likely as a result of the percentage of students that speak that language. And so if there's not a high percentage, if you will, generally that data doesn't dictate the need for translation. It's not that it's not important, but it typically covers the majority of the students and families that you serve.
So at this moment, I'm sort of hearing that Spanish and Mandarin might be the two that we have that would be ones that we could easily implement.
I threw that out there, Dr. Van Leuven. I'm not sure if we have Mandarin. It was just a suggested language, but I think we should go to whatever our internal process is for translating, and make it a point that if anybody who does not fall in the higher percentage of traditional translation, that we would not exclude them if they ask. We would find a means to have their input included.
Okay, we'll work with district staff on that part of it. So we can deal with that part of it. You're hearing that we do have other opportunities for folks. And so I think that's what we're going to be shooting for.
Thank you.
Okay, let us now get to the timeline, which I'm going to share with you and see if we can get some closure on this one. So here we are, August 20th. Here's what we're advocating is that we would have a survey. We'd have these 3 days open where we'd have sessions and meeting with people. We've set, because there's timing with EdCal of when we can, they close down certain times. So those are the dates that we would advertise.
Again, I have a problem with the September 8th. That is Labor Day in that window right there. And I'm not sure if we would miss people because of the holiday.
We can come back to it. I'm just trying to give you the gestalt here. The 20th, so we have the advertising times. We need to come up with a special board meeting where you're going to select the candidates. It could be in closed session. You actually go through interview in closed session. And then if you want to do a validation visit, and we can talk more about that. And then we're shooting back for approval at a December 10th regularly scheduled board meeting for you to approve a contract. So if you're going to do anything, it has to be a regularly scheduled board meeting. Right now, you're only in competition with, I think, Newport and Tustin in terms of the superintendent's open. Can you think of anything else that, David, that in terms of might be that they're going to be competing with?
No, there's perhaps a couple that are pending that currently districts have created interim positions, but right now actively just two.
So when we created this back in July was to put you on the front end so that you wouldn't be competing and potentially losing people. So we backward mapped from December 10th and we went forward. Okay, so that's what we created. I'm hearing a concern for, and I would probably agree, the September 8th, and that's a survey that would be closing. Or are you concerned about the sessions of September 1st through 3rd where we would be meeting with people?
No, I'm just concerned about the holiday following on that. I believe it's the 6th, and that wiping out an opportunity for people to have access. If we set up locations at the schools or different places like that, it would limit their ability to be present and to participate.
Okay, so we can extend the survey longer, a couple days. Is that?
I would suggest extending the survey to September 10th, the Friday. It provides almost an additional week.
That should take care of it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good call. Okay. What about the, again, these are sort of set. It gets turned on autopilot when EdCal is available. We have
Sorry, Dr. Van Leuven,
Yeah.
when you mentioned the November 8th special meeting and the November 15th, 16th special meeting, do those have to be in closed session?
Yes. Okay, so we're looking at closing it on October 25th. And again, we're trying to get back to this point of December 10th. It gives you enough time. We have to vet everybody. So we're going to give you all that information. And the other part of it, this, as we're looking at this, we want to make sure that you're competitive with the other folks. So we have there's a little bit of a strain on us to be able to pull all this stuff together because we have staff that also has to pull all the paperwork together, because you're going to see all the applications. Everything that comes in, you're going to see it on November 8th. And you're going to have it a couple days before. So that's really what's going on with that. We just arbitrarily and capriciously set November 8th as a special board meeting date. It can go a couple days before. We want to make sure, though, you have enough time if you want to vet them and you do a validation visit, which is you guys would go and who knows what COVID's going to be like. It may be a Zoom meeting by then. But if you wanted to go to a district and talk to folks there, or something like that, most districts are not doing that anymore.
What are you suggesting? Are you suggesting that there's an opportunity for the superintendent candidate to present in a forum? Is that what you're suggesting, or what?
No.
What do you?
No, this is where the board might go look to the district and do a visit at the district to talk to people there.
The board may. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, the board may opt to send two, or make it a opportunity where you have to agendize it. That would you go and visit the district of the district that the candidate's coming from.
Oh, okay. You said the district that the candidate is coming from. And
Yeah.
I do understand that there is some, at times, issues where a prospective candidate may not want to publicly announce that he or she is applying, and they may choose that we as a board meet them in a neutral location. Sometimes it's by the airport or something that's out of the area. What do you feel about our board being up against something like that, and that being a part of this timeline as well? I personally would like for whatever superintendent we choose to have an opportunity to speak publicly to various interest groups that were interested in seeing what he or she had to say, even if it was an extent that that prospect interviewed and it was videotaped to allow, certain, interest groups to see who this candidate is.
Well, for openers, you're going to need to conduct the interview in your district boundaries. And then you're going to lose candidates who are not want to have their name out there because it's not confidential. The confidential is a big piece that they, just like you said, they didn't want to have their name out. David, I think you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to reiterate that this is considered a confidential search. Actually, Doctor, you mentioned earlier in your comments that this is the most important decision that a board or trustees can make. And Dr. Van Leuven is correct. If it is any type of community forum or open-ended aspect to it, you're going to lose some very, very good candidates. Your point is well taken that candidates themselves who may be interested in applying for Antelope Valley want to make sure that it's a confidential process, that they're not jeopardizing their leadership in their current district, perhaps. And so we always make sure, or suggest rather, to the trustees as a body, as a group, that they maintain that confidentiality. It allows you to most often and most likely have available to you the best of the crop, the tier 1 applicants, if you will. As far as the interview process is concerned, Dr. Van Leuven's correct. It needs to be in your boundaries. It can be at a public library, it can be at a hotel, but we make sure that that confidentiality is extended in that process as well, with regards to when we set up the interviews, who comes in at what point in time, who enters the building, who exits the building. So those are logistics that we take care of that reassures and confirms the confidentiality for the candidate accordingly. That's really very critical.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
Just one other point, and because I'm gonna be really technical. There's one occasion, especially with COVID, where if in a district there was not a meeting place that could house this because of, if it's a small school district that doesn't have any rooms, and you have to, you don't have the space, and it also has to meet with air quality and that kind of stuff. They can go outside the district, but they have to have a pretty good rationale to do that for interviewing. That certainly is not your case, because you have tons of places where you can meet outside of the district. So, I mean, in your boundary. So that's the other part of that. I know in other states that there's a lot of things that go on, but in California, it's pretty specific as to what happens there. Okay, so let's get back to the timeline. So I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with it closing on the 25th. It requires a special board meeting that in closed session where you're going to see all the candidates. We will have vetted them. We will tell you everything about them. You will tell us who you want to interview. And we're looking at potentially 2 days for interviewing, in which you're going to select who you want, and then you go from there. So is there anybody have any problems with the dates that are being on this draft?
Looks very good to me. Anyone with questions or comments?
I guess just to make sure that at some point, if we have more candidates, maybe we have less, these dates would be flexible then accordingly, right? If we don't have enough candidates, then we need to extend the search.
If there's an issue where we don't have candidates, then we would extend it. You guys will get a chance to see what you got, and we'll
Okay.
let you know what's happening. You're going to be punished with paperwork.
It's great to me. Thank you.
And you will have some people who apply. I think there's an interest.
Okay.
So anyway, okay. So if we're good with this,
Sorry, in the same vein as Ms. Nguyen, even if we have candidates and for some reason they don't meet the criteria, what is the options to go back to the drawing board and consider a new pool?
that's what we will do. We're with you to the end of this thing.
Now, I would add that it becomes more of what I would consider or call a targeted search, where there may be more specific outreach to potential candidates in terms of the interest for Antelope Valley. But we continue to work with you, the trustees, in regards to finding the next superintendent. One of the things that EdCal provides, the publication for AXA, the state's administration superintendent's advertisement, is that it reaches 1,000 districts. It reaches what I would say practically any assistant superintendent or sitting superintendent that might be interested in a position. And in terms of the timing, I know that there's been some debate about, is it better to find someone in the fall when they come on board fresh, or as you have mentioned, this timeline that we've created, there's really not any advantages or disadvantages. In fact, I've heard people say that it's advantageous to come in, for example, during the first semester. Things have already started, school has begun, goals have been set, core values set, those kinds of things. So I agree with Dr. Van Leuven that you folks are going to have some fine candidates. And then just to reiterate that the board will see all of the applications. We provide those applications prior to the decision of who you would like to interview. We send those to you electronically, and you have those available for you typically within 3 to 4 days prior to that meeting.
So we're not screening anything. We will give you all the information when we vet that. Okay, so at this moment, with the one exception that we're changing the survey, everything looks good, and so we're going to go forward with that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I will tell you also that, and Dave was just talking about EdCal, our website is getting hit by all sorts of people outside of the state, because we are the largest search firm and do the most searches in California. So we will have people from out of state. We've placed a number of them already this year or this past year from other places. So you guys will get a chance. You'll see a lot of paper from a lot of folks. So, okay. The other thing, when we get to the finals, we will, I'm going to talk about contract parameters. We give them a piece of paper that sort of says, here's the range that we think, how much we want to get paid, the just kind of different contract stuff. And
let me go back. May I go back? May I go back for a moment on the November 8th special board meeting? If at all possible, we'd like to determine a start time at this point. And generally, we need at least 3 hours to have that conducted with the board.
I know it's a long time
I would
away.
suggest somewhere between 4 o'clock.
Can we give that to you soon? I mean,
As a board, we should decide. I think to allow input from the community, even local people get off from 4 to 5. So if we could start at 4, that's my suggestion. Dr. Ruffin.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it's a closed session meeting on the 8th.
Yes, it is closed.
But there is also options for input, right? From the community on the
There's
closed
always
session
options.
item.
Yeah, you go from open to close. That's correct.
Exactly. So that's why I suggested that, to give people an opportunity to provide their input.
But you've already provided the stakeholders of your community the input through the survey and through the Zoom forums that we're going to have. We collect that for you. That's their voice that we have collected and have already provided in the form of the position description, as well as the executive summary. So you'll see and be able to have all of that information prior to
Before
this.
the 8th. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Verduga.
Certainly. So a start time for the November 8th meeting is I mean, if at all possible, we'd like to get that confirmed now. Generally, we need about 3 hours. There's a lot of conversation, of course, about not only all of the applicants that you'll see, but those that we, along with you, may consider because this is your search, we may consider to be the tier 1 folks.
That's what I wanted to clarify. So on the 8th, when we get the applications to review, do we have a set number of days to review them and to get back, or is it supposed to be reviewed in this meeting only?
No, you will receive all of the applications electronically, typically 3 to 4 days prior to this meeting. It'll be sent to you.
Got it.
That's your opportunity to review and prepare perhaps any questions. You may see someone on that application that you desire more information about, and we will have vetted and reference checked all of these folks prior to that meeting and bring forward to you those folks that are that, again, for the lack of a better word, are the best match and fit to what you folks desire collectively.
You're going to see them all, but we're going to, based on that profile, we're going to end up telling you what we've discovered. You guys figure out who you want to interview, though.
Okay, well then I suggest 8 o'clock. Or
Is it 8 o'clock?
is that 3 hours? 8, 9?
Well,
10,
totally
11.
Oh, you're
dependent
talking
on,
morning. Okay, I thought you were talking 8 o'clock at night. What time do you think?
8 a.m. Do you guys have a preferred time, Dr. Verdugo and Dr.?
No, we work for you. You guys tell us. That's what we're trying to just make sure we're good with you guys.
but very much dependent upon the majority of the board's
We
decision.
typically start, if we meet in the morning, we typically start at 10. So I would suggest if we're doing a morning meeting, we start at 10.
Can we all put out a time? Can you go through and ask each one of us?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Are you able to go around and ask each board member what time they prefer?
Certainly. Ms. Perrell, what time would you prefer?
10 o'clock.
Say that again? 10, okay. Ms. Ruffin, Dr. Ruffin?
8 a.m.
8 a.m. Okay, Ms. Wynn?
10 o'clock is our normal time that we start our morning meetings.
Ms. Rush?
10.
10, and I vote for 10, so it will be at 10 a.m. on November 8th.
Okay. And we will be there. Looking forward to it.
We all will be here too.
And then we'll worry about the interviews on the 8th. We'll figure out the time that we want to do and how many candidates we're doing and all that stuff. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank
Wait,
you.
that was big. What we
Is
just
there a
did.
way? Is there a way that for each of the survey areas, is this the absolute questions? I know Dr. Verdugo said that you all will have options. I don't know if these are dropped down. We can't see whether, like for number 6, if it's a drop down, it's a ranking from 1 through 7, but this is the question. Is there a way for any of these questions to be altered?
You mean on the
Are
survey?
you referring to the survey?
Yes, I'm looking at the survey and I'm looking at, for example, number 6, desired professional experience. And it has a ranking from 1 through 7 for each one of these questions. But I'm wondering, is there any means for these questions to be changed? So for
We
example,
generally don't
experience-
change anything.
I'm
I'm sorry, we
suggesting-
generally don't
I'm
change
just-
anything.
Sorry, Dr. Verdugo.
I'm sorry, I apologize. No, I'm sorry. I was going to simply say that we generally don't change anything on this survey instrument tool. And the primary reason is the questions are really the questions that we ask not only all of the stakeholders, but the board themselves. So that's one of the items that is consistent. I do know that we do request at the beginning of the survey, who is taking that survey? Are you a teacher? Are you a community member? Classified employee, so on and so forth.
I agree with that. I agree with the consistency, and that's what I was trying to establish before we put it out. Like I was saying before, I didn't see any questions on here that was specific to DEI or inclusion that specifically asked that. I mean, there's one under number 8 that said equity minded, but I didn't see anything anywhere else. But okay.
Yeah, I think the majority of the emphasis that you're referring to will come from the board. In other words, as we get down to that point where we're asking the board's input for the desired qualities and the experience, that's going to be an important item to reiterate to us for us to capture. And I would add, Doctor, that it is something that is becoming very, very common. You mentioned the courageous equity warrior, or someone who has had experience with cultural proficiency. Those are very common right now. There's a lot of things that are taking place that we are revisiting as a result of COVID: social emotional needs of students, academic achievement. But when we get to that point, we will capture all of those items. In fact, Dr. Van Leuven will be capturing those on his laptop.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we've actually started talking to people. I'm talking about candidate recruitment. We've talked to some people already, and we'll have more that will be coming to us. We will get a contract parameter worksheet, which will make sure that they're sort of in the ballpark, whatever that is. And you'll see those with the finalists when you're interviewing. We will get a copy of the current superintendent's contract. I know it just got changed, but we'll get that. So we'll have that, at least kind of an idea of what's going on. So we have 2 more things, at least they're on my agenda. One is making sure we've answered all your questions, and then you don't get to hear me talk anymore. Dr. Verdugo is going to be able to, we're going to go through this process of taking your input. So are there any questions about anything at this moment that we've covered? We've covered a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay. Now,
Sorry, of course, I had 2 more questions.
okay.
For September meeting for the 8th and November, November 8th, November 15th, and the 16th, those are both special meetings. Is the meeting, the board completes the validation process, is that meeting also a special meeting, or is that a regular meeting?
You just have to decide if you want to do a validation process. The board hasn't decided that. That's just an option that we built into this.
So when do we discuss that?
And when you get done, well, you can figure it out probably maybe either through the interviews or when we come back together for the selection, if you want to do that. Either the 8th, or you can decide if you want to do it after that.
So what would trigger, I know you said that we would decide, but it usually, I'm trying to just have clear transparency from a vote and it not just be an individual or individuals who are making these decisions for this board. Is there some kind of way you can flag us on the need to do that for November the 8th or the 15th or 16th?
I don't know what that means.
To have that be agendized, because we would have to discuss it if we're going to go with the validation process, correct?
Yeah.
I would say that it's not that formal, that a decision can be made during either November 8th and or the day of the interviews as to whether or not the majority of the board desires to have a validation visit to the selected candidate's school district. As Dr. Van Leuven mentioned, if it's a couple of board members, there's no need to agendize anything. If it's 4 or 5, 3 or more, then it would need to be the case. Also, that might be dependent upon whether or not the board would desire simply a Zoom validation process as well. So it's not something that is, again, as formal as perhaps we made it out to be initially. It's an opportunity for the board to reassure your public that you've gone the extra mile to make a validation visit, to visit the former or to visit the new superintendent's school district, speak to people who they have supervised or who they have worked for, perhaps a board member, a PTA member, things of that sort. we help in that process with the person that you've selected. So that's simply what I wanted to add.
Thank you.
I would probably say most districts don't do it, but we put it on there just for a conversation, just like we had. So, but Zoom is a wonderful tool nowadays, and so you can, a variety of ways of getting to it if you need to. Okay, now we're going to get to the next part, which is board members' input on desired qualities, characteristics, experiential background, the district's strengths and challenges. So I'm gonna let David facilitate this, and I'm going to, if you guys talk too fast or if I don't understand something, I'll seek clarification, but I'm going to attempt to take notes. This is the first step. That what we're going through is what we will be doing with each of the community input groups. Same 3 questions that we're going to be asking, and this will, again, as David said, with the consistency part. Okay, cheers, David.
Okay, thank you, Fred.
Yep.
Well, with regards to the agenda item, it's number 11 that we're looking at, board members' input. And we are wanting to obtain from you those desired qualities, the characteristics, the experience, personal and professional, that you feel are important for us to capture as we create this profile. I generally start with some examples. So for example, your position profile may end up literally stating something to the effect of, we desire a superintendent. I mean, it'll be a little bit more formal than that, but we desire a superintendent who is, has, will, and by that I mean those are action words, that is or has been an equity leader, has experience at the high school level, will continue certain programs that you have there, is visible, is a good listener, who maintains integrity, has a strong track record. So that's the idea behind what we'd like to capture from the board. And if I may suggest, we'd like to start with President McGrady, then we'll go to Vice President Rush, then to the clerks and the members, to the clerk and the member, Mrs. Nguyen. But then we'll circle back, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of reestablish some thought process as to what you'd like to add in that information. Is that clear?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay, so if you don't mind, we can start with President McGrady.
Certainly. I made a couple of notes last night. I was trying to think. So I believe integrity.
Yes.
A superintendent who has clear decision-making skills, one who can delegate responsibility, who is organized, he listens, she listens. They would have control of the room. I believe high school experience would be incredibly important. And it works well with people. I think probably said something similar to that. The equity piece, we need someone who will continue to help us work toward equity for all. And that's what I had written so far.
That's a great start. Thank you, Mrs. McGrady. We'll go to Mr. Rush. By the way, Mr. Rush, John Rush is my next door neighbor where I live in Orange County.
Oh, wow.
But Vice President Rush will follow up with you, and we'll circle back to the others as well, of course.
I think that the person, first of all, has to have outstanding leadership qualities. They have to have, it's the basic. A great leader, I think that they have to have a minimum of a master's degree. And I don't know, I'll defer to you on experience levels and what you think that is it 15 years, 10 years in administration? I'm not sure. I'll ask you what you think about that. But they have to have compassion towards others, a great listener, and many of the things Jill said as well. Experience level, what's your recommendation for somebody's experience?
Well, I think Mrs. McGrady hit the nail on the head when my first thought comes to the high school experience, that is either needed or desired to run a high school district specifically. But you're going to have a variety of experiences. I might just interject before we continue that we're going to get a variety of applications as well. We may get someone who's an elementary principal who feels passionate about the feeling that they are ready for a superintendent's position, but we know that they are not. That's a big, big gap, unless there's some kind of all-star. But that's the advantage that the board gets when they get to review the applications and see them for yourself. And if you had any questions regarding that kind of person, then we could certainly reiterate and inform you folks a little bit more. So you're going to get some gaps there, but most of the applicants, in my opinion, will have some fine cabinet level experience, as well as maybe perhaps even being a superintendent and being in the seat previously. So yeah, I think those preferences that you talked about are something that we can discuss as a group as well. If I may, we'll go to Mrs. Nguyen.
Well, I feel that Ms. McGree came up with a great list. I too feel like high school level experience is extremely important. I spent quite a few years in the elementary school district, and the transition to high school was a learning experience. So I also believe that integrity, leadership qualities, I'd like to make sure that we look at equity seriously. I'd like to see the compassion in a person and patience, and someone who's forward thinking to take us into the future. And we're talking about education for our students, and I want to make sure that we build a solid, firm foundation for them. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Nguyen. Mrs. Perel.
Hello. Everyone pretty much said everything I was going to say, but integrity communicates well with not just the staff, students, but with the community, and listens. Great leadership, has compassion for all, and very passionate for what they do and what they're going to be doing, and also have high school experience as well.
Thank you. And Dr. Ruffin?
Yes. I'm actually looking for somebody who's going to be outside the box. I'm not looking for the traditional person that we've traditionally chosen for this district. I think that in the field of education, there's many organizational leaders out there that have come into K-12 institutions and have done phenomenal jobs, whether they've actually worked in that position or not. I'm looking for somebody who's able to work from a perspective of a unified school district. I think that it's very isolating that we're only looking at a high school experience, because the majority of our students come from 7 feeder schools. That individual needs to understand the needs of these individualized feeder schools, the elementary and middle school. A lot of our challenges that we have with our academics have started in that space, and they need to be able to work across the aisle to help prepare those feeder schools, because we're not a unified school district, for what we expect when they get to us in high school. I think that will be the shift that this district needs in order to have not just 1/3 of our high school students graduating every year, but pushing that 2/3 to graduating with a high school diploma on an A through G track. That's one. I also think that we need to have somebody who is inclusive and not just merely speaking about DEI, but actually has demonstrated that. So we need to be able to show that this person, to some degree, that it's measured, that they've done that in the spaces that they were in before. How did they deal with the overrepresentation of Black and brown kids in special education, overrepresentation of Black and brown kids being suspended and expulsions? That's an issue that really needs to be addressed, and it's definitely present in this district. I would like to see a person who is willing to work with our teachers union. You know, I was a labor person for a very long time, and I believe that our teachers are the hub of our school, as well as our counselors. But with being able to work with them and hear what their needs are, and also look at the overall needs of this district. In addition to that, I think that it's important that we find somebody who has worked with disadvantaged students and underserved students. Somebody who's not afraid to talk with foster youth, somebody who's not afraid to talk with the community agencies within, somebody who's not afraid to talk to parents and bring them in. I think that this person needs to be someone that understands the traditional ranks, whether or not they went through it, be a person who's not afraid to push the needle of educational justice for all students, and exceptionally our underserved students, underserved students in our district and feeder school districts. I think that they need to be able to lead from a trauma-informed leadership with those values, and with the decision-making, like I said before, with dignity, respect, and compassion. And I believe overall, be very inclusive and mindful of the community that we work in. Traditionally, these boards have been predominantly white, traditionally, people in superintendencies positions have not reflected the people within the community. I think it should be somebody who really resonates and understands the needs of these students and not be afraid of the surrounding politics that could impede the growth of the students in this community.
Outstanding. Thank you, Doctor. I'd like to just circle back to Mrs. McGrady if there was anything that you'd like to add after listening to some of the comments by the entire board. Anything that you'd like to add to that list?
Okay, I do. A higher degree is really important in my opinion. We have a number of principals and directors who have doctorate degrees. So in my personal opinion, I think a higher degree is important. We have many wonderful programs that are already working and going, and I would like to see someone who is not only visionary, as Ms. Wynn said, but also will allow and support some of the very successful programs that we already have. So in the sense of, yes, we want somebody who is looking at the to the next century and moving forward and moving in new directions. We do want to continue some of the highly successful programs we already have. And I think that's all I needed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rush?
Nope, I think that's, or somebody else has.
Okay. Mrs. Wynn?
Thank you. Sorry, had my mic on. Thank you, but I feel like it's been pretty much said, and all five of us have covered just about every area that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Perrell?
No, actually, thank you.
Okay. Doctor?
Yes, lastly, somebody who's not afraid to deal with a turnaround situation. There was an exceptional superintendent who Compton brought in, and he's done some amazing things in that community to shift the academic success of those students. Ultimately, I want somebody who's going to come in here and make sure that our students have lifetime trajectories that's going to catapult them into areas of success, that they're not just going through 4 years of getting through high school, but when they finish high school, they can survive and thrive outside in the world. And I would love to see somebody who can manifest that in the ways in which they've already done business in an organizational leadership space, or in a K-12 institution, or even if it's some of our middle schools. I think we can't be remiss to know that some middle schools have ninth graders in it, even though it's not technically a high school experience. You're still dealing with developmentally those students and what they need to be on the trajectory to be successful citizens in our world and our community.
Outstanding. I think that completes the input from the board. There are two more questions that I'd like to ask, and we'll begin again with President McGrady. And that is, what might you consider to be the strengths of the school district? Things perhaps that you're most proud of that you'd like to share?
That's a difficult question because there are a lot of things I'm very proud of. I think that I would start immediately with staff. I think we have wonderful teachers. I think we have a wonderful classified staff. And our people care about this district, they care about the students, and they care about educating children. I think some of the programs, some of the teachers that we have done so many innovative programs and creative ways of teaching that, we have, I'm just trying to think right off the top of my head, but the Night High program, who's won first in the world with the drone project. We've got the medical magnet at Palmdale that wins in the nation every year. We've got Solar High School, which was named as one of the top 10 high schools in the United States. And those are just a few. We just this year had a couple of schools that, I'll get it wrong, but were named, I believe it was for Avid, that we win awards wherever we go. And that has to come from the incredible staff that we have to get kids excited about education and excited to come to school. We've survived the pandemic and are coming back. And I think the challenges that our teachers and our employees have met through the pandemic, and that we've come through it and are coming back to school and coming back to work, and the kids are excited to be on campus. So I guess I rambled around quite a bit, but I think it's about my major thing that I think I'm most proud of is our staff, our teachers, and our classified folks.
Outstanding. Mr. Rush?
Well, how do you follow that? But really, it's, she mentioned everything. I'm very, very proud of the fact that we have the career academies that are I think that's outstanding that they have those at the schools. I too am proud of the staff. I think they're very passionate. And I'm proud of the kids. The kids are the ones that we're here for, and they seem to have been very resilient when it comes back to getting back to school. And I look forward to, and one thing I'm very proud of, and it's really on a personal level for me, it's the cabinet as well as the administrators here at this district. I'm very proud of the fact that I got to work with who I think is probably one of the best leaders of an organization that I ever had and been involved with Dave Vieira. So I know I will be proud of that relationship, but I'm also proud to be a part of the process to replace him as he moves on to other things.
Great. And we'll circle back with the entire board right now as you begin to contemplate what might be some of the challenges. But moving on to Mrs. Nguyen, some of the strengths.
Well, we got to stop letting Miss Brady go first because she keeps taking them. I'm just teasing. So I feel like we have so many strengths in this district, and I feel like our diversity is our strength. I embrace it. And I feel like, to me, the Antelope Valley Union High School District is family. And our staff is amazing. And you can just throw out any kind of challenge and they pick it up and run with it. And that's how we end up with all of the awards that we receive. And we end up with the programs that we have. Definitely our strength of our district. Our families are our strength as well. And we have many supportive families and people in this community who care about education. And our students. Of course, my most favorite day of the school year is graduation day. I absolutely love seeing those faces come across the stage and then enter the next phase of their lives. And I think that those are just a few of the strengths in the Antelope Valley Union High School District. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Mrs. Perrell?
Yeah, our strengths, it's going to be the same, but obviously our programs, which wouldn't be there if it wasn't for our staff and our teachers, especially our students. That really is our strength as well as our students. So if they wouldn't be where we're at if it wasn't for them.
Perfect. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes, I am resoundingly astonished by the the spirit and the soul of the students in our district. I love the fact that they show up regardless of extraneous circumstances. A lot of times our schedules are not in alignment with the feeder schools or parent schedules, and our kids, they show up. You know, we have the highest population of foster youth in this community, and these kids show up. If it wasn't for these students showing up and we get in their ADA, we wouldn't have a community. So I'm proud of our students. I'm also proud of our families because even with the struggles that we've had, parents still believe in public education. I think education has always been, at least for Black people, it's always been a means for success and further means. And so I'm proud that our families believe in us enough to invest in our care with our students. I'm proud of the work that I see being done with our staff, you know, not just so much from, you know, I had a child that went through this district, and I remember from the custodians to the security guards to just the friendly faces that you encounter, the everyday people within our schools that are doing the hard work. They show up and they're not only educators, but sometimes they have to be an auntie or an uncle, or, you know, they do good work. So I'm proud that we have individuals who want the best for our kids.
Outstanding. Let me then now switch, if I may, Mrs. McGrady, to challenges. I think you mentioned maybe one or two there previously, but anything else that are challenges? And before we start, I did want to let you know that all of this information is going to be shared with the candidate or the person that you select. We believe it's important for that new superintendent to have, maybe for a lack of a better word, a little bit of a roadmap on not only the things that are most prideful in that school district, which are critical and important, but also some of the potential challenges that someone might be facing, so that in their 90-day plan or 100-day plan and in working in conjunction with the board, these themes come out and can be helpful. But Mrs. McGrady, any challenges that come to mind?
Certainly, thank you. And I did mention problems with the pandemic, and I'm sure every school district right now across the country is dealing with that. But as we all know, it changes daily, and our teachers and our staff are stepping up to do what has to be done. And I know we appreciate that, but they're still taking care of children. We're still teaching, but every single day is a new day because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if the teacher's going to have been exposed or students or what. And just the fact that now their lessons have to be or need to be on, I believe it's on Google or whatever. So if that student is sent home because of COVID, they can still go on with their education. So there are many things with the pandemic that I believe everybody's facing now. As we continue to work with the social issues, and that's by hiring more counselors, psychologists, and everything to try to help lower our need for suspension and expulsions, I think that we need to continue on that. We are doing that. We've lowered it a lot over the years that I've been on the board, but we need to continue to work on that so that we're trying to meet the needs of every child. And right now, as we see the anger in people just in our world, I think that will spill back over onto our campuses. We see that, you know, parents, adults, look at some of the issues that are happening on flights right now. I'm worried for our student population and for all of us that we need, and I'm kind of circling back to the need for the mental health and all of those things to try to meet our students' needs. Let's see. I almost hate to say this, but we tend to have a bit of a fractured board. And I think that anyone who is interested in coming here probably needs to listen to some of our board meetings. We don't want anyone to be blindsided when they get here. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rush?
Well, I'll agree with most of what she said, or all of what she said. But I really think that the mental health issue for our students and our staff is probably going to be coming out of the pandemic is going to be something that we have to really focus on the near future. We have a lot of programs in this room here, the Take Two suicide prevention. I would like to make sure that our kids and staff are all getting the services that they need as we come out of this. I agree that it will behoove anybody, and I'm sure anybody who's applying for the job will do diligence and listen to those board meetings and realize exactly what they're getting into ahead of time. Because they're very contentious, and it is a fraction board. And anybody that wants to come here has to be aware of that at this point. So that's
Good. Thank you, sir. Outstanding. Mrs. Nguyen?
Well, I feel like quite a few of our challenges have already been discussed. I feel that recovering from the virus is a huge challenge for any school district. I just recently read a CSBA article that details the educational loss, especially for our low income and disadvantaged youth that happened during the virus. And I feel like we're behind now. I want to pick that up and bring those kids up to where they should be, and because they need a fighting chance once they get out in the real world, and education is their fighting chance. But I feel like that's an extreme challenge for us. And anger. I recently talked to a teacher who said that her day consists of trying to stop fights. Oh my goodness, that's a terrible thing to hear. And so our social emotional issues need to be addressed as well. And I think staffing, staffing is across the state of California. We need more teachers, more people who want to work with our students in education. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Perrell?
Yes, I have to agree. It's recovering from the pandemic. So having these students going back into school, expecting them to be at the level that they should be, which is not, ideally is not going to be there. They've been having to use the online platform like my children have. One of the big concerns is definitely the mental health. That actually really concerns me, the socio-emotional as well. Those are our biggest challenges. What we've faced over, I've been on the board 3 years. So looking at the suspension expulsion, it's gone down drastically, but yet we still have some hiccups as well within there. But overall, I think these challenges are, we're not the only district that are facing this. Every other district's going to be looking at the same thing as well. So that's pretty much what I have to say.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's pretty universal in that regard. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes, thank you. Over my 23 years of working in education on various levels, from a teacher, counselor, school psychologist, management, I've met a lot of people who either worked in our high school district or live here. And I have to say that a lot of the complaints, and these are people who are still superintendents now, have talked about their experiences in this district and why they left. There's issues of nepotism and cronyism that's deeply rooted in this community that creates a culture of fear internally, to the extent where high-end teachers, very dedicated staff, if they don't go along with the status quo, have been sent to quote unquote Siberia. That's an issue. There's a divisiveness outside of our district that lives within our community, where our community has a consent decree that's been going on since the early 90s about the deep-rooted racism that exists within the Antelope Valley. Anybody who takes this position needs to be aware of that, because that does spew into the culture of what's going on within our system. Someone spoke about contention on this board. Anytime you speak out against systems that have been in place and that do not fully include everyone, for example, one of the issues that I spoke out about was a promise. I'm on huge committees within LA, work with some very prominent people that are looking at LA Promise for the students. And we're still a part of LA County, by the way. All students who come out of the high schools and a part of the LA community colleges are offered the opportunity to go to community college for free. That's not an option here in the Antelope Valley. We voted on policies here, and only 100 students out of the 23,000 kids we have has that as an option unless you go to SOAR. So that being said, there's a divisiveness within this valley. There's a West Side mentality versus an East Side mentality. And that's why this district was broken up into 5 areas to have equal representation of community leaders that will come in and speak to the needs of all of our students. It's no difference from what we're doing right now with the census and the redistricting. And that is very important. I think that it's also important that we look at universal grading practices. I've spoken to teachers and counselors from different parts of this, the Antelope Valley. There's different grading practices that are not universal, and that's the responsibility of the board and whatever superintendent is to make sure that our kids have an equal opportunity to go to college. So in a few board meetings ago in June, it came out that 2/3 of our students are not on track to graduate. 2/3. So all the accolades are going to the 1/3. 2/3 out of the 80% minoritized students in this district that are not being addressed, that's a problem. I went to a public school. I graduated from Crenshaw High School. These kids here, 14% of the students in this community are Black. That's 4,000 to 5,000 students. That's a lot of kids. It's a lot of kids who are depending on us to do right by them with the systems that we put in place to make sure that they can be successful. So that's our responsibility. Retaining qualified educators. I spoke to so many educators here that talk about the current administration and being very top down. That's why I'm suggesting an equity warrior, somebody who's not a part of this culture, to come in and not be afraid to lead with dignity, respect, integrity. And then that zero tolerance mentality, it has to go out the door. We just had a vote on police in our schools. We paid $25,000 to have a committee come in and tell us whether or not it was worthy. They said it wasn't, and we still voted against it. So traditionally, this district, whoever comes in here, they need to know the challenges are. Traditionally, in our district, if they do the research, it's been a lockstep board. There hasn't been anybody to speak out against the things that we would want to be reflective of the students in this district. And when you do so, it's a problem. So it's important that we get somebody who's willing to work across the aisle, to hear everybody's voice, that there's no form of retaliation or punitive damage to people for speaking out. And I would like for somebody to come in and really begin the healing. And I believe that the Antelope Valley Union High School District can be a reflection of greatness. Because again, we have so many great things going on here. We have the aerospace, we have people work in the Antelope Valley, contrary to misbelief. You know, they work, they buy homes because they can afford them. We don't have a lot of vacant homes in the Antelope Valley. So people actually own their property. They live here, they work, they want investments. So our challenges is looking at what's going on externally within the community, not ignoring that, not having this family mentality that excludes the in-laws or the stepkids if you don't like them.
Thank you, Doctor. I think the point, we often, very often, of course, traditionally suggest to any candidate that they assess the district as much as the district might be eventually assessing them for that match and fit. So point well taken. Let me go back to Dr. Van Leuven for any closing questions regarding the process or procedures. And then I think we are probably ready, if I'm not mistaken, Fred, for a closed session very quickly.
Yeah. So the experience you just went through is what the experience all of your constituents are going to go through. And all of this will be gathered and you'll get a chance to see everything that's written. You'll see the trends that we will see, but you're going to see everything. Anyway, so that's what you just experienced again is what others are going to see. So I'm good at this moment. So we should probably exit and then rejoin.
Okay, thank you. So we'll all exit out and call back in for the closed session. We'll move into the main room. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much, doctors.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great job.
See you momentarily.
Good afternoon. I'd like to reconvene our special meeting. Report out from our closed session. Board members present, Perrell, Ruffin, Wynn, Rush, and Brady. 0 members absent. During closed session, the board discussed the superintendent position and the board took no action. So we are back into our special meeting. We would like a motion to adjourn. Could I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second?
Second.
Ms. Wynn, thank you. Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, we'll now take a vote. Ms. Perrell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Ruffin?
I just was able to get back on. I don't know what we're voting on.
We're voting on adjournment.
Excuse me?
Adjournment?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Ms. Wynn?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. McGrady? Yes. So the item passes by a vote of 5-0. So thank you very much, everybody, and goodbye.